Okay, yesterday I won one of the Challenger Cups for Master Duel. That's a tournament series that is currently held exclusively in Europe for some reason. So throughout December to January, you can pretty much almost every day play for some nice prizes, and it's free entry. So if you want to join or if you want to sign up, I guess also make some advertisement for them, because a lot of the same players are playing them at the moment, and I think it's a great first step from Konami to at least give some incentive to play Master Duel in general right now. But I also feel like there's not that much coverage regarding what kind of decks to play. I think the Master Duel format in general seems not that tested out as of yet. Even though I did a lot of Master Duel content on the channel in the past, I basically haven't touched the game in a long time. I made a video actually many months ago at this point where I talked about what needed to change for Master Duel, and I think at least in my feeling, not a lot of those changes have been implemented. But to at least give a competitive platform, I think it's a good step. It's a good step in the right direction. And I thought, considering the history of the channel and what we've done already, talking about Thunder Dragons and stuff all the time, I also played a sort of Thunder Dragon deck. Not that many Thunder Dragon cards, but at least some. So I thought maybe I'd show it off, because it is something a bit different than what you may be used to seeing in the Master Duel format. So this is the deck list that I used. I think a couple of things stand out immediately. First of all, we're obviously playing 60 cards. I mean, if you know me, especially from the TCG, you know I love 60 card decks. I love a Grasslook Screener. It's a crazy card for me, and I really wanted to try a Thunder Dragon deck that also had a chance going second versus Sword Soul and Despia, because those are the most prominent decks in the Master Duel format right now. That also had a chance when you go second, because in the Master Duel format and also in the Challenger Cup, a lot of it is best of one. The whole Swiss is best of one, and then only in the top cut you get to play a best of three. And even then, you have your whole cards pool as a side deck. It's a very different kind of format than the TCG. But to withstand in the best of one format through the Swiss rounds, you have to have a very powerful deck, in my opinion. And one of the ways, or one of the approaches you can take, is to play a deck that just overpowers the opponent's board when you go second, unless they play a super combo heavy deck, such as Adamantipator, for example. But as long as they play Despia or Sword Soul, which are the most popular decks, then an approach like this can work reasonably well, as long as you open your Grasslook Screener. And to open that Grasslook Screener a lot more consistently, I chose to run Left Arm Offering. So this card reads: if you have 2 or more other cards in your hand, you banish your entire hand and add a spell from your deck to your hand. You cannot set spell traps during the turn you activate this card. So this card inherently a bit conflicts with the branded engine, because you want to set your branded red, you want to set your banishment and all those cards. Especially when you mill a lot of cards, you get the Tragedy in the Grave to set them back to the field, so you cannot even access that. But the goal was, if my opponent stopped me with an Ash on Branded Fusion or an Ash on Grass, I can still activate Left Arm Offering, banish my entire hand, because in the branded deck a lot of your cards in hand are often dead. They don't do anything, such as Edgem Chains when you don't have a way to discard them, or the Snows. You just get your Grasslook Screener, you dump a lot of cards, you mill a Snow, you mill Thunder Dragons, and then you can, you can start playing again and at least survive the next turn. Snow is a very, very strong card in the Master Duel format at the moment. I mean, in general, Snow is a very broken card, and it's banned in the TCG for a reason, but in Master Duel especially, I feel like, versus Sword Soul, which is, like I said, totally popular there. A lot of people in the Challenger Cups are playing it. It's very, very strong. So that's why I went for the deck in general. I also thought that Left Arm Offering might be nice, because it also can banish your Thunder Dragons. But this is also very specific already. Maybe let's talk a bit about the deck list in general. So we're maxing out on a lot of stuff. We're playing 3 Tragedy, we're playing 3 Aluber, we're playing 2 Albas, because we don't want to mill one with the Grasslook Screen and then not have another one in deck for the Branded Fusion, of course. We have 3 Snow, 3 Edgem Chain, we have 3 Albion, because this dumps the Branded Retribution. And of course, if we mill a lot of cards with the Grasslook Screener, we can then, if we get an Albion in the grave, or if we already have one in hand, we can then banish the Retribution to get one of those cards back to our hand, one of the branded cards, especially Branded Fusion if we mill it off the Grasslook Screener. We also play a couple of hand traps: Maxx, 3 Maxx, 3 Ash, 2 Nibiru, 2 Nibiru, because you want to draw into it with your Maxx in case your opponent goes full ham on you. And you have the Maxx, so they don't OTK you and you survive. Inherently, there is a lot of motivation to play the Thunder Dragons with the branded deck, because obviously Thunder Dragons are a fusion archetype, and every fusion archetype works really well with branded. But you have to say that the Thunder Dragons, they also like to be linked off. So you have to find a way to get rid of them on the field, especially if you, let's say you activate a lure, you banish your roar, you summon the dark. Usually this would be a very, very strong play, but in this version, you have to find a way to get the dark off the field in some shape or form to resolve its effect to get the Hawk to your hand, to then make a Colossus in addition to your end board. So that's why I put the Edge Imp engine or the Patchwork engine in the deck as well. I mean, this is a very standard engine in the branded deck in general, but I mean, you could also think about playing other cards instead of those to even benefit the Thunder Dragon engine more. You could play Thunder Dragons, you could play Thunder Dragon Fusion, which I cut eventually because it just seemed to be a brick in the end. But I still played this because this can, with polymerization, you can get the dark off the field to then make your Colossus even when you're locked into fusion monsters, because you cannot link them off when you resolve your branded fusion. I also threw in one Ecclesia into the deck because I needed another light target that was somewhat nice. It's a good mill, and it is also searchable off your branded Lost, as well as your Mercuria. Now, Mercuria has a special place in this deck as well, because if you mill this off Grasslook Screener and you mill a Snow in addition to it, you can banish it and then immediately search the Ecclesia, special summoning it potentially, and special summoning the Fallen of Albaz to then, you know, break your opponent's board and establish your own board. What I really like about the Ecclesia in general is that oftentimes this deck doesn't need its normal summon, right? As long as you open branded opening or branded fusion only and you don't have to normal summon your Aluber, you have your normal summon at the ready. So you can search the Ecclesia, just normal it, and apply pressure with it in a way where you summon the Fallen of Albaz on your opponent's turn. It also is a nice way to play around Maxx and still have somewhat of a play. And this is another thing that I really enjoyed about the deck. The more I practice with it, sort of just playing with it and getting the more of an idea of how, what works and what doesn't work, is that Grasslook Screener actually plays really well into Maxx and this whole idea of the deck. Because if you resolve Grasslook Screener, your opponent Maxx you activate Grasslook Screener, you mill Snow, and then you can always survive the follow-up turn. There's basically no way they OTK you through a Snow in your grave with 20 cards. Like no Call by the Grave, no Crow, no Cheng Ying, no Mirror Jade or anything makes it so they can effectively OTK you. They have to have a lot and you don't really have to have anything going for you. Also, I really like how if you mill, for example, your Ad Libitum, right, or your Tragedy, and you normal summon the Aluber, you can just search the branded banishment or the branded in red, and both of them are going to be live. Also, if your opponent maxes you and you mill the Albion, in addition to a branded in red or a branded banishment, you can then dump the Retribution with the Albion to the grave and add one of them back to your hand, immediately having access to them without even special summoning once. I already went over the left arm offering. I do have to say this is a bit gimmicky. I don't know if I would keep this in the deck because the restriction of you not being able to set any cards, it is somewhat hindering, but I just like the combination with the Thunder Dragons, where if you banish them off the cost, you even still get the effects, or a Mercuria, for example. And having access to Grasslook Screener, like I said, it can be really nice, but it's more of a backup plan, really. If it's in your hand, you often discard it with your Lebellion as well if it goes through. Goldtag is obviously a nice one-off, banishes your Thunder Dragons, and potentially even your Mercuria if you want to search an Ecclesia or an Albion. 3 Allure should be standard in your Thunder Dragon list. 3 Grass, Patchwork, Branded Fusion, 1 Branded Lost. Now, Branded Lost is really nice because if you have Branded Red and you have Branded Fusion, you just activate Branded Fusion, they let it through. Maybe they don't have any hard negates or any direct disruptions, but then you resolve the Branded Fusion and then you chain the Branded in red in your hand to the resolution of the Branded Fusion on the summon of your fusion monster, and your opponent cannot react to your Branded in red, making it so you can destroy stuff of their field with Guardian Chimera without them being able to react to it entirely as long as your previous fusion went through. I know this sounds really complicated, but once you get the idea of your opponent not being able to respond when you fusion summon a fusion monster, you really can do a lot of crazy things with this card. And I think especially because we play Grass and you have a lot of access to Branded Fusion in this version of the deck, you can afford to play the 1 Lost. Especially in 60 cards, you won't open it that much dead. 2 Called by the Grave. I like this card versus Despia specifically. You could think about maybe cutting it to make your deck even more consistent, make it more powerful, because it is a card that can potentially brick your hand. But of course, versus Ash, versus Branded Fusion, it's maybe a bit too nice to really let go of it. And everyone plays Ash, in comparison to the TCG, everyone plays Ash in the Master Duel format, because it can stop the Branded Fusion, it can stop Maxx, especially Maxx, so every deck is going to use it. 2 branded openings to 2, semi-limited, right? And then 3 branded red because we have so much access to get cards in the graveyard. And then 1 banishment and 1 retribution. Now the extra deck, you might wonder why is there only 1 Mirror Jade. I only have 1, so if you have multiple, you can definitely and should probably play multiples. Maybe one of the, I don't even know if it's in Master Duel yet, is the Albion Lattice. Yeah, I don't have it, but you can definitely play it instead of one of the Albions. You don't need 3 Albions realistically. I play 1 Titaniclad versus the Ecclesia Link monster, because Titaniclad, funnily enough, can get up to 5,000 attack, so it can crash into the 5k arrival at Ignister. The way you do this is, maybe I've gone over this in a TCG profile as well, but the way you do this is you have to get Guardian Chimera in the graveyard with your Albion, and then you use the effect of Albion, the fusion monster, to fusion summon Titaniclad using Albion in the grave, because it becomes Fallen of Albers when it's in the graveyard, and Guardian Chimera to summon the Titaniclad. Then Titaniclad gets attack equal to the levels times 100 of the fusion materials. So because this is 8 and Guardian Chimera is 9, you go to 1700. So the Titaniclad goes up to 4200, and then you use branded opening to summon your Ad Libitum out of the deck, and Ad Libitum actually has a hidden effect where during your main phase you can make all monsters currently on the field gain attack equal to their own level. And because Arrival Ignister doesn't have a level, of course, but this does, this goes up to 5,000 attack. So it's a neat little way. You could also play the Starving Venom Fusion, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, I think it's called, or something, where it's a super poly target. But the reason I like this more is because it's an additional target for your Mirror Jade to get in the graveyard. And I mean, if it gets up to 5,000 attack, then there's no really, the probability of them going for a 6k Arrival Ignister is very low. So and Ignister is actually quite a popular deck in Master Duel because it can play a lot of hand traps, and in the best of 1 format you need a deck that either has a lot of power or that has a lot of hand traps, I feel like. And then everything else is pretty standard, you know, 1 Mud Dragon, you go for this maybe with your Thunder Dragons, with the Polymerization, if you're a bit desperate with your hand. You have Dragostar Pelia, of course, the 3 Albion sometimes comes up, and then 2 Masquerade, 2 Lubellion, a Guardian Chimera. You can once again play 2 of this, I only have 1, and the Predaplant Verte and Dark for several link plays. The Dark is really just a placeholder for, like I said, a second Mirror Jade, a second Guardian Chimera, whatever you want to play. And good old Colossus. That was it for the deck. I don't really have replays for this video. I mean, I really just wanted to throw this out really quickly. It's been a while since a new video on the channel, and I thought this might be a nice opportunity. A few people have asked for the Dark World list for the TCG that I used, and also the branded list that I'm currently using for the TCG that I'm using on Dueling Book. I think on DB Grind I was on the channel a couple of times, and people have sort of caught on to the idea that the branded deck is maybe not that bad, or maybe it's a fun option in the format. I might do a deck profile on it. I'm not really that sure yet. I do prepare a bit for the next YCS in Lyon, in France. I'm going to be there. So, and there's a lot of stuff for university right now, so maybe not going to find the time at the moment. If I do, then nice. I'm going to do a video about it. And if you really want to have the deck list for those decks, just PM me on Dueling Book or wherever else, and I can send it to you. Right? All right, that was it for the video. See you next time.